Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about what you need, some things that are genuinely helpful, and then other products that are simply gimmicks when it comes to effective dry fire practice. Let's get right into it. Before we start, it's important to note that this video is going to apply to both rifle and pistol dry fire sessions, while this is going to be tailored towards pistol stuff. The other thing I want to note is that I am not affiliated with, nor do I hate, any of the companies that I recommend, or any of the ones that I don't recommend. If you think that I am sponsored by some company or someone's paying me, check the subscriber count and you'll be like, damn, nobody knows this guy. I see why. The things you actually need for dry fire is the shortest list on this video. It only consists of two things: your pistol and a holster. All you actually need is the gun. The reason I say you also need the holster is because if you're dry firing for any practical purpose, you have a holster and you need to draw the gun. So the first thing I recommend you get after you have the gun is a shot timer. The reason a shot timer is so critical is because it helps you benchmark and use par times to see how you are doing in your dry fire and allow you to see where your deficiencies are as you make progress. So shot timers are extremely useful. When you're using them alone, just set it up to delay and you'll get a beep. The second beep you just heard there was the 0.8 second par time that I use when I work the draw. So this is not broken. You see the tape. We'll talk about that later. Training ammo is probably the second most helpful thing I have for dry fire. And when I say training ammo, I do not mean those plastic snap caps that you can get from a sporting goods store. I'm really talking about inert, actual ammunition. The reason I prefer this, and when I say inert ammunition, I mean you have a metal case and an actual bullet, but there's no gunpowder and no primer, so it is completely cold. The reason I prefer this to a plastic snap cap is because it maintains the weight of actual ammunition. So when you punch a mag up with your fake training ammo, as you're drawing your gun and as you are reloading, you are getting the exact same weight that you would in live fire. Using training ammo is extremely helpful regardless of the reason you're dry firing. Just make sure that your bullets are like a different color than your actual ammo, and that will maintain kind of the safety factor so that you can visually tell that this is different from the hot stuff. The third thing on our helpful list is tape. Now, tape is awesome when you're dry firing for several reasons. The first of which you already saw here. When you have a shot timer, it's meant for outdoor use, right? So if you want to calm the sound down, just put some tape right over your buzzer and that will help a ton. I personally like to be a professional upstairs neighbor, but when you have a wife and a kid, you have to kind of be an adult. So that's the first reason it's helpful. The second reason tape is helpful is for occluding your red dot optic if you have one. If you don't know what red dot sight occlusion is, it is the act of covering up the front lens of your red dot sight so that you cannot see through it. The reason people do this is to use it as a training aid to ensure that they have target focus. If you don't know what target focus is, it's just the act of, like a camera, having your eyes be focused on a specific point on the target rather than being sucked into that beautiful red orb that's just floating around in the ether, right? Why does this work? Well, when you have one eye behind the red dot sight and another eye looking at the target, you will know if you're target focused or not by either seeing a completely black disc covering up your target, and then of course the red dot, or your entire target sucked into that specific spot with a red dot superimposed by your other eye onto it. It's hard to explain. We're going to try to do it as best as we can with the camera, but you really just have to see it and experience it in real life to understand the training benefit. Again, if you haven't included your red dot before, definitely try it, especially if you're a beginner. It can help a lot with the learning curve. Another reason tape is helpful is for making little targets or visual focal points around the house. You can use different colored tape if you want to, or of course sticky notes work fine too. The final use for tape is what I call the Glock trick. The Glock trick is where you simply take a piece of tape, you fold it up, and then when you have a dead trigger on your Glock, meaning you have pulled the trigger and the striker is no longer engaged, you can pull the slide back just enough to where the striker resets, and then you can stick this tape right in between the chamber and the breech, and all of a sudden you have a trigger that moves back and forth. This is one of the most helpful things I've had as a Glock shooter trying to dry fire, and it gets the Glock back to how most other pistols operate. So that's awesome. That's it for tape. I'm done sounding like a tape enthusiast. It's helpful, get some. Okay, the fourth item on our list is going to be actual dry fire targets. Now, this is not just good for competition shooters. I think targets like uspsa targets are great if you are training for EDC or as a law enforcement officer. And if you use these in live fire, they're going to translate very well into dry fire. Again, the zones here are rather practical, and I think they work more than fine even if you're not a competition shooter. Now, if you are a competition shooter, the value there doesn't even need to be stated. You get to work with the actual targets that you're competing with, so that's awesome. If you buy a mixed like variety pack of these, you can use the other side as a no-shoot side, and then you can get your steel poppers and other stuff like that. This one comes from Ben Steger Pro Shop. Again, I'm not affiliated with them at all. I will put a link to this in the video description. Okay, the fifth item on our list, and we only have one more, I promise, is chalk or grip enhancer. Now, the chalk comes in many forms. Some people use powerlifting chalk. That's a little messy for me. Or you can buy these specialized products like Pro Grip or any other like magnesium-based lotion type thing. You shake it up, probably looks weird. The way most people apply this is just to the mating surfaces on their hands and then where their hands actually connect with the gun. So that's going to mean the inside of both hands and then the outside of your firing finger, or of your firing hand fingers, and then of course the entire inside of this hand. So just like this, and then just like this. You're not trying to rub it in like it's lotion, you just want to spread it out thinly. Chalk is also extremely helpful in live fire, arguably more so in live fire than dry fire. But if you're somebody who gets extremely sweaty, especially later into sessions, I recommend getting chalk just to keep your grip at the same point that it was when you started the session. If you are an on-deck shooter at a competition and you like just did your shit, you can blow on it. And that'll quickly dry it up. And you can see I didn't put a ton on there because we're inside, but fuck you, timer. So chalk is good. I have to wash my hands. The final item on our list of helpful things is going to be awesome when you have the motivation and the discipline to be doing dry fire, but you're just running out of ideas. If you're at that point, I would say get a book. The main one I recommend is called Practical Shooting Training. It's written by Ben Steger and Joel Park. They break this book down into 4 different levels based on where you're personally at with your skills and what your goals are. And it includes both dry and live fire drills for you to be performing in order to get better. This book also contains a ton of knowledge that will enable you to start diagnosing your own problems in both live and dry fire so that you can get better on your own. Again, extremely helpful. If you have that high motivation and just no ideas, definitely pick this book up if you are interested. It'll help give you a much clearer path for getting better and reaching your goals. Okay, we've covered the 6 things that I find to be helpful during dry fire. If you have something that you think really helps you during your dry fire practice, leave it in the comments and let other people know. I'd love to hear your experiences. Now we're going to talk about the stuff that I do not think works and I think will either not really help you make progress, slow you down, or actually put you in the wrong direction and teach you bad habits. Now again, these are products that I either have never owned or got rid of after purchasing them because they sucked so bad. Now you may be saying, Eric, well, if you didn't ever own the product, how do you know that it sucked? And to that I say, you don't need to eat a shit sandwich to know that it wouldn't taste good. The first gimmick we're going to talk about is the 2 Mantis products. The Mantis X series, which is all their pistol products that attach to a handgun, and then the Mantis Blackbeard series, which is specifically for a rifle. It's a laser bolt carrier group that resets your trigger group, and then a red magazine. Now, the reason I do not like the Mantis X, which again is the pistol series, is because it emphasizes the wrong things. Also, if you run a weapon light, you can't even put it on anyways, but that's neither here nor there. The reason it actually sucks is because while it does provide some data that would seem interesting, it's just not that helpful and it's a little limiting because it gets people to focus on having like a perfect trigger press and just reducing flinch and a lot of other beginner-friendly things that again are going to be solved through regular dry fire without the product anyways. I do not see a need for it. It's a at least a triple-digit price tag, and with that money, you could just be buying ammo in the first place. So no, I do not think it is a good use of somebody's money. If you like the idea of like having a game made out of your dry fire, you're not taking dry fire seriously enough anyways. The reason I don't like the Blackbeard product is because if you have a 2-stage trigger for your AR, if you simply lock the bolt back, you now have a trigger that articulates. Ta-da, done. You no longer need the trigger reset system. The laser bullet thing is kind of cool, but is it worth $200 or $300? No, I do not think so. Again, if you're also dry firing reloads, you want to have an actual magazine with dummy rounds, not some plastic brick that's the shape of a vertical 20-round magazine. It's not that helpful to actual dry fire practice. The second gimmick we're going to discuss is the laser bullet system. I know several companies do it. I'm not talking about any specific brand. I just think they're all subpar. While they are kind of fun, if you want to, compete with family members who don't really shoot and make a game out of it, that could be kind of cool. Now, the reason I don't like the laser cartridges is because they're just fucking annoying. Also, the way most people dry fire, unless they have a double action handgun, is not going to allow them to actually hit the laser bullet and actually activate it. So this is really only going to work for people who have a double action handgun if they're pulling the trigger back and forth. Otherwise, they're going to be cocking the gun just enough so the bullet doesn't come out and like da-da-da. And it ends up being another gimmick, which is why I ended up in the gimmick section. And our final gimmick of this video should not be a surprise. It's going to be airsoft guns. Now, there's a couple valid use cases for airsoft guns. You could do budget force on force training, wholesome airsoft wars where you just shoot your friends in the balls, or if you live in a place that does not respect your gun rights, you could have an airsoft gun and do it that way. Now, when you have an actual gun though, is where I believe an airsoft gun becomes a gimmick. Because if you're using an airsoft gun to try and simulate recoil or dry fire with it when you have an actual gun, I think you are wasting your time and you're wasting your money if you don't have an airsoft gun and you want to go buy one. Most good airsoft guns do have a triple-digit price tag, like all the other items in this gimmick list. And again, you could be spending that money on ammo. Spend your money on ammo. If you have extra money in this economy, spend it on ammo. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you tuning in and I hope you learned a thing or two. The purpose of this video was not to promote my way as the best way or shit on any particular company or their products. I know there's a lot of people out there that are trying to innovate and sometimes they miss. And it needs to be pointed out so that other people are not gullible and buying the wrong products. I made this video so that I can share the information that I wish I had had when I started shooting. I know this video took a while to come out. Thank y'all for being patient. The next one we have coming out is going to have a lot more to do with competition shooting. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope this video made you a better marksman.